So this is part B of the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo editions on Saturday the 22nd of July 2023. This is the part B continuing with the fantasy bandwagon that is being triggered by the name Nigel Farage. This is the Times, Rupert Murdoch Times editorial on Saturday, the 20. Well, we'll go back to that after checking the actual date. That is the wrong date, that one. We shall be talking about the Times. This is the Times on the front page of the Times Saturday. No, this is Friday. And this is again, it's about NatWest's boss saying sorry over Farage Rao. This is the head of NatWest apologized to Nigel Farage last night, that is 20th of July, Thursday, for deeply inappropriate comments about him as the government began a crackdown on banks to protect freedom of expression. Now, this is completely criminal because Nigel Nasty Farage is a criminal. And what they are calling freedom of expression is nothing to do with freedom of expression at all. He's a criminal inciter of hatred. And he is not being correctly reported. So while I'm doing this, I'm looking for the actual times of 22nd of July, the front page of the Times, 22nd of July, so that I can okay, so this is the Times of 22nd of July, and this is the one that the front page is not about Nigel Nasty Farage, it's the front page is about election. And they are again prodding Rishi Sunak to continue to be the agent of the racists by blaming the migrants. But the name Coots, like Coots Bank, COUTTS, the Coots, the name related to money, appears on the front page trailer, and it is the name Sophia and the double barrel name Money Coots. Too much of a coincidence. This is too much of a made up name, Sophia Money Coots. And she is saying how to live it up when you are skint. Skint is a colloquial for being broke, being without money, being poor. And she is featured in this weekend piece on the Times saying how it is possible to live without money. And she is saying cost of living crisis, how to survive if you are boogie broke. Even the well-heeled are having to cut back. Now, two writers report from the front line. One is I find ways to spread the cost, like canceling a few osteopath appointments. That is Sophia Money Coots. And who is the other one? The other one is Nikki Haslam. One wants to retain style and dignity, but using public transport is fine. So that is why Nikki Haslam. Now, what these people are doing, going back to the original purpose behind the Conservative Party, it is conservative should be read to actually mean corrupt. Conservative means to contaminate. Conservative is not, in the slightest sense, to preserve, to protect what is natural, what is sustainable. So we should be coming back to the issue of the nasty Nigel Farage getting the support of Boris Johnson as well. Because Boris Johnson, according to the Daily Mail, is backing nasty Nigel Farage and asking for the sacking of the person or persons who are behind the closure or closing or the banning of the bank account or banking facilities for Nigel Nasty Farage. Remember, this is the same Boris Johnson who stole Nasty Farage's slogans and became his instrument and claim credit for the various things that he did over Brexit. And there is a piece on the Times on page 11 headed Cameron, that is David Cameron. Mother's dementia makes it personal, but an answer is in sight. Now, this is a piece that would not be possible to find in the Times associated with Cameron when he was in post as Prime Minister and was mocking the most vulnerable. For example, when he repeatedly mocked Jeremy, who was in post as opposition leader and was appearing during question time opposite David Cameron, Prime Minister's question time. And one of the things that Cameron said about his mother when he was condemning, belittling Jeremy Corbyn was that his mother would say that he, Corbyn, should put on a decent suit, etc., etc. It is the same mother that is now the subject of his almost humane dementia. I mean, the mother who would deride Jeremy Corbyn, apparently deride Jeremy Corbyn for not wearing a suit, is now suffering from dementia. And her suffering from dementia has reduced David Cameron to almost the level of a human being. Okay, so this is the piece about Boris Johnson that I talked about earlier, but I couldn't find when I was speaking. I was speaking from memory. This is the piece on page 20 of the Times of Saturday, and the piece is headed Johnson, that is, Johnson is saying, fire bank boss over Farage. And this is a piece written by three bylines: James Beale, social affairs editor, Ben Martin, banking editor, and Tom Witherow. So Boris Johnson has called for the banking chief at the heart of the Nigel Farage fiasco to lose her job if she leaked confidential information as MPs challenged her lucrative bonus. The former Prime Minister said he would wager the entire contents of my own personal bank account that Dame Alison Rose, chief executive of NatWest Group, had discussed Farage's account at Coutts, a subsidiary, with Simon Jack, the BBC's business editor. Now, this is something that is extraordinary. Extraordinary because, like the personal tax returns and tax information, people's banking practices and banking details and banking data are considered sacrosanct, very private indeed. So, Simon Jack is the BBC's business editor, of course. So, the Times piece continues. The journalist, that is Simon Jack, and the banking executive, that is Alison Rose, sat next to each other at a BBC correspondents' charity dinner at the five-star Langham Hotel on July the 3rd. The next day, Jack published a statement suggesting Farage had not met the wealth threshold for Coutts, a claim later proved false. Johnson, writing in the Daily Mail, said, I would bet my house that it was no coincidence that the following day Simon Jack ran a BBC story claiming that the decision by Coutts to whack Farage had nothing to do with politics. Is there anyone who seriously thinks that Alison Rose was not involved, especially since neither party is now willing to comment? Johnson added, I am afraid that if Dame Alison was in any way responsible, then she really needs to go. Jack's story was later disproved by a 40-page dossier which exposed the bank at him because it was So, what the Times piece, the main piece, Johnson fire bank boss over Farage, and the profile on this man, former Courts diversity champion. Both these pieces are about attacking, attacking equality and attacking diversity. Because Alison Rose is being condemned for attacking climate change events and also for focusing on climate change and equality and diversity. Now, let's see what on page 27 the Times editorial is saying about this. So the Times editorial on the bank is confusing commerce, commercial success with morality, because it is saying that commercial success should be separated from morality. Here is the editorial heading which says costly values. Firms, that includes banks, should not promote virtue signaling. Now, virtue signaling is an insulting phrase. It is meant to say that anyone who raises virtuous or moral issues or values is somehow being guilty, whereas they should not be treated as being guilty. They should be lauded for being morally correct. So the editorial called Costly Values has got the subheading Farms should not promote virtue signaling at the expense of commercial success. And then it says this week's revelation about Coutts, that is the bank, treatment of Nigel Farage have been a PR catastrophe for the bank. Having shut Mr. Farage's account, Coutts obfuscated by claiming the decision was commercial. A dossier produced as a result of a subject access request proved otherwise. Court's Wealth Reputational Risk Committee had recommended severing ties with Mr. Farage owing to his publicly stated views, which it judged incompatible with Court's position as an inclusive organization. This is about diversity and equality. It is revealing that in attempting to rationalize their decision, the committee insisted its assessment of Mr. Farage's unsuitability as a customer was not political but based on inclusivity. This word, together with diversity, has become the stock in trade of those who would make their living from trying to turn commercial companies into censorious vehicles for social reform. These executives have somehow managed to persuade their bosses that it is a positively good thing to shed customers if they are of the wrong kind. Coates is not alone in allowing doctrinaire wokeism to trump sound commercial judgment. Last year, Halifax Bank suggested that customers who objected to their inclusion policy should consider leaving the bank. Shares in the do it yourself chain Wix fell last month after its COO said that gender critical customers were not welcome. Firms increasingly imagine that it is their task to promote particular values rather than interests of their shareholders and customers, with sometimes disastrous consequences. Bud Light, once the best selling beer in America, lost $6 billion after hiring a controversial transgender activist to promote the brand. One need not be a dyed in the wool reactionary to worry that this postuling, posturing may be needlessly alienating customers. The business of business is business, not preaching to someone simply trying to buy a packet of screws. Now, what this particular editorial in the Times today and the coverage of Boris Johnson's piece based on Nigel Farage's disclosures and comment to Alison Rose shows that they are not concerned about the actual morality, the actual values of banking, the values of business. Because Nigel Farage is not the only one whose banking service or banking facilities have been interrupted, let's say, or disrupted by one bank. There are literally any number of people in this United Kingdom who are and have been for many, many, many years totally denied banking service and are still being denied banking service. And the banking service denial includes the denial of information about the subject access request that Nigel Farage has been granted, but the ordinary other people are not allowed. So the question of business, the phrase that the tautological phrase that the Times is using in the editorial, I'll read that again because in one sentence it has got three incidents of the word business. The business of business is business, not preaching to someone simply trying to buy a packet of screws. Now, this is not buying a packet of screws. The actual access to banking facilities is, I think, it is not an exaggeration to say that right to banking service is like right to breathing, right to air, breathing air. Because banking is essential for day to day transactions. Almost universally, 99% of the business transactions in the United Kingdom is done by banking. And if you don't have personal banking facilities, you are denied basic transactions rights. And so, therefore, your life chances, your life chances are drastically taken away from you. So, it's worse than human rights violations. And there is no discussion about any of that in any of the papers that are actually discussing this. They are talking about other people collectively being denied banking service, but not in any way to the extent that they are actually devoting a dedicated discussion about Nigel Farage, and they are over emphasizing the fact that he is a political person and nothing to do with his being an individual, ordinary person. They are politicizing it. They are making it political, not the bank. Okay, so this is the other piece, the kind of case story in the Times on page 20. The one that has got Johnson fire bank boss over Farage. And this one is cut off. I was told to rely on food handouts. So this is what I meant. It's like human rights. It's worse than human rights violations. It's worse than being denied the freedom to breathe air. A pastor, a supermarket worker, and a small business owner have all told how they had their accounts closed without explanation by NatWest Bank. More than 10,000 people, 10,100 people have joined the Facebook group NatWest closed down my account. 600 just in the last 2 days, following the row over Nigel Farage's debanking by Coots. Many are submitting subject access requests, just as Farage did to the NatWest subsidiary, to find out if it compiled information on their views. Lucas, 43, from southwest London, owns a small business. He created the group in 2020 after his work and personal accounts were suspended just 2 days before Christmas. He said he was given no reason for the closure and that when he asked how he was supposed to afford to eat, a NetWest staff member told him to use a food bank. Julia Raza Noor, 44, from East London, said her accounts were closed with no explanation last year. The supermarket worker was allowed to take out £200 only after begging staff. She said she had to pay almost £2,000 in an early termination fee on her mortgage, as she had to find another lender. A pastor who did want to be named said, a pastor who did want to be named, no, that mean he who did not want to be named, said his account was closed in 2020. He did not challenge the decision, but said he had moderately conservative views. NatWest was approached for comment. When a newspaper item says this organization or this party was approached for comment, and that doesn't include any comment, which that means that they did not comment, they did not respond to the request for comment. Now, there is a piece, I'm moving away from this banking thing in this edition. There is a piece that was published in My London last month, I think, about Lutfur Rahman, Tower Hamlets Council Executive Mayor Lutfur Rahman, talking about his alleged sense of shame. I'll come to that in a short while. I'm looking for the item. Okay, so this item is dated exactly a month ago on the 23rd of June 2023, and it's on the mylondon.news website, and it's bylined by or bylined to someone called Ruby Gregory. And it says in the headline, East London Mayor, East London Mayor embarrassed that there are no female councillors in his administration. And the paragraph underneath that is the Tar Hamlets mayor, whose administration is made up entirely of Bangladeshi men, made the statement during a cabinet meeting earlier this week. And this is posted at 1740 UK time, 23rd of June 2023, and it's by Ruby Gregory, local democracy reporter. Now, this piece, together with the heading, is completely corrupt and stupid and ignorant. Now, I shall read the stupid, ignorant, and corrupt item first and then comment further on it. The mayor of Tar Hamlets has said that he is embarrassed and ashamed that there are no female councillors in his administration. Lutfur Rahman made the statement during a cabinet meeting on Wednesday evening, June the 21st, where cabinet members have been critical of a neighborhood forum diversity of the council. Mr. Rahman, who formed the political party Aspire, which went on to win a majority 24 out of 45 seats, councillors were men and that there were no women. He said, can I say, and I have said this publicly before, at the time of the elections, but said the female population had shown support for him and his colleagues to get us elected. And hence, you see my head office. Okay, I'll read that sentence again. He explained, we had large sections of the female population supporting me and my colleagues to get us elected. And hence, you see my head of office is a white woman. Where possible, where necessary, and absolutely it is necessary, I'll promote women, I'll support women. Mr. Rahman said the party had tried its best to recruit people from other communities, as councillor candidates, but said people couldn't follow through with this due to a number of reasons. He said either they worked in difficult jobs or they worked in public service and they weren't allowed to stand as councillor. He added, and because of what was going on in the media, in the public domain, it had also scared and discouraged people to stand on our platforms as councillors, but still I feel ashamed and embarrassed that that was the case. Now, once it is finished, I'll comment on this. Now, I finished this reading this. Now, this individual, Ruby Gregory, reminds of another Gregory who used to be contributing to the East London Idiotizer about 15 years, 18 years ago. I wonder if this Gregory is connected with that Gregory. Now, this piece is completely ignorant and stupid and corrupt because when it says that people didn't want to be associated with us, that is Lutfur Rahman's party, as candidates for election as councillors for his so called political party Aspire because of what was going on in the media. What does he mean? What does he mean by what was going on in the media? She doesn't say that. She doesn't say what was going on in the media. And according to her report, he didn't say what he was referring to as the media. And what was going on in the media? What was going on in the media, and because of what was going on in the media, in the public domain, it had also scared and discouraged people. Now, how is it possible that a candidate to become a councillor can get scared and discouraged because of something going on in the media? What exactly could that be? Of course, it was Lutfur Rahman's corruption, Lutfur Rahman's dishonesty, Lutfur Rahman's lying, and the fact that Lutfur Rahman was kept banned from public office for at least 5 years until that time. Why doesn't Ruby Gregory mention that? Now, this is one of the things that we shall be expanding on at great length as an update. How is that local democracy? How is that local democracy reporting? Here is the short list of allegations that must be accompanying this piece by Ruby Gregory. And I shall get the relevant ruling as published by Richard Morey. there are several items online. This one is the one that actually refers to Luther corruption. So I shall be reporting on this ruling, which is called in the High Court of Justice, Queen's Bench Division, because that was while the Queen was alive, 2015. So it would be called King's Bench Division now, but in 2015 it was called Queen's Bench Division, Election Court, in the matter of the Representation of the People Act 1983, and in the matter of a mayoral election for the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, held on the 22nd of May 2014. And it was before Commissioner Richard Morrig, QC, who would be now called KSC, King's Counsel, Andrew Alam, Debbie Simon, Azmal Hussain, Angela Moffat. These are the petitioners. And the petition is against Mohammed Lutfur Rahman and John Williams, returning officer. And this was published on the 23rd. The hearing dates mentioned are 2nd of February, starting 2nd of February 2015 to 13th of March 2015 and 4th March 2015. Now, what the actual findings by Richard Morey say, I'll go to the end of this report, which is quite a lengthy one. So, on 5 pages of this report, the ruling, 5 pages, the word guilty is mentioned. Now, how many mentions of the guilty are mentions of Luther Rahman as being guilty is something that needs to be found by reading the whole thing. So the guilt is there, and Ruby Gregory is there are 686 separate paragraphs in the actual report. So the paragraphs 672 is preceded by the heading two words, formal conclusions. The court is satisfied and certifies that in the election for the mayor of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets held on 22nd of May 2014, the first respondent, Mr. Rahman, was guilty by his agents of corrupt practices contrary to Section 60 of the 1983 Act. Section 62A of the 1983 Act. The first respondent, Mr. Rahman, was guilty by his agents of the illegal practices contrary to Section 13D1 of the 1983 Act, Section 61(1)A of the 1983 Act. The first respondent, Mr. Rahman, was personally guilty and guilty by his agents of an illegal practice contrary to Section 106 of the 1983 Act. The first respondent, Mr. Rahman, was guilty by his agents of an illegal practice contrary to Section 111 of the 1983 Act. The first respondent, Mr. Rahman, was personally guilty and guilty by his agents of a corrupt practice contrary to Section 113 of the 1983 Act. The first respondent, Mr. Rahman, was personally guilty and guilty by his agents of a corrupt practice contrary to Section 115 of the 1983 Act. And in paragraph 673, which is the next paragraph, it says the court is also satisfied to the relevant standard of proof and certifies that in the election for the mayor of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets held on the 22nd of May 2014, there were corrupt and illegal practices for the purpose of promoting or procuring the election of the respondent, Mr. Rahman, at the election. And those corrupt or illegal practices so extensively prevailed that they may reasonably be supposed to have affected the result of such election. Paragraph 674. The court therefore declares that the election of Mr. Rahman as mayor of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets to have been avoided by such corrupt or illegal practices pursuant to Section 1591 of the 1983 Act, and also to have been avoided on the ground of general corruption pursuant to Section 164 1A of the 1983 Act. Paragraph 675. It is declared that Mr. Rahman shall be incapable of being elected to fill the vacancy for the office of mayor of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets under Section 164 1B of the 1983 Act. And paragraph 676. Mr. Rahman is a solicitor of the senior courts, and the court is obliged by Section 162 of the 1983 Act to bring this judgment to the attention of the professional body, the Solicitors Regulation Authority. It is ordered that a copy of the judgment be sent to the Solicitors Regulation Authority. 677. The court will also report and certify that Mr. Alibor Chowdhury was guilty of a corrupt practice contrary to Section 113 of the 1983 Act and illegal practices contrary to Sections 106 and 111 of the 1983 Act. Paragraph 678. As the court is required to consider the matter under Section 145(3) of the 1983 Act, the court finds that corrupt practices extensively prevailed at the election, both of the mayor and of the councillors for the 20 wards of the termlets held on 22nd of May 2014. Paragraph 679. These conclusions will be embodied in the certificate of the court and will be the subject of the court's report to the High Court under Section 145, under Sections 145, 158, and 160 of the 1983 Act. Paragraph 680. Their effects is firstly that Mr. Rahman's election as mayor on 22nd of May 2014 was void. That is to say, it is as if it had never taken place. He has not lawfully been mayor since that date. Secondly, as has been said, Mr. Chowdhury must immediately vacate the office of councillor. Thirdly, it will be Mr. Williams's task to arrange for a new mayoral election and for a by election in the ward of Stepney. Now, these are the main conclusions. The other paragraphs 683, 684, 685, 686 are considered from 681 to 686 are considered as afterwards. Now, when Luthraman says, according to Ruby Gregory's report, that people were scared to associate themselves as candidates for councillors for Aspire so called party, does he mean any of this? Or was there a mysterious reason going on? Can you explain this to us? Seeking to change some of the evidence entered in the ruling. In all of those, Luthraman's applications were rejected by the court. That happened in 2015 until the last time he applied. So, why didn't Ruby Gregory, mention this? We shall be asking her the questions and then we shall be making formal complaint to any audit organization that may exist. And we shall be communicating directly to Richard Morey, seeking clarification about some aspects that have not been previously raised but are being raised now. The fact that Luthraman's corruption, extensive corruption, is being banned, are completely missed and omitted by Ruby Gregory is extraordinary. What kind of democracy is she reporting? So we shall be bringing an end to this particular edition, which is 1 hour and 7 minutes long. And we shall be continuing this question